The coffee in Hyun-Woo Kim's cup had gone cold hours ago, but he still held it between his weathered hands. Through the wide window of Station Alpha 7, endless stars stretched into the black void of space. He had seen those same stars for 30 years, yet they never failed to call to him. "Captain Kim, your final mission briefing is ready." The voice belonged to Commander Hayes, a younger man who had never spent more than 6 months away from Earth. Hyun-Woo turned from the window. His reflection showed a man of 58, with silver threading through his black hair and deep lines around his dark eyes. Those lines came from squinting at distant suns and smiling at wonders most humans would never see. "Final mission," he repeated quietly. The words tasted strange in his mouth. The briefing room was small and sterile, filled with the usual faces: administrative officers who had never left the station, scientists who studied space from the safety of their labs, and commanders who made decisions about places they had never been. "The Kepler Void," Commander Hayes said, pointing to a holographic star map, 18 systems, completely unexplored. "Your job is simple: catalog any planets that might support human life. Standard deep space survey." Hyun-Woo studied the map. The Kepler Void sat at the very edge of human space, where the stars grew thin and the distances between worlds stretched beyond imagination. It was the kind of place where a man could disappear completely. "How long?" he asked. 3 years minimum, maybe 5 if you find something interesting." Hayes smiled. "Consider it a peaceful end to your career, Captain. No hostile aliens, no emergency rescues, no impossible deadlines. Just you, your ship, and empty space." The other officers nodded and murmured their agreement. They saw this assignment as a gift, a gentle way to push an aging explorer toward retirement. Hyun-Woo saw it differently. He saw it as exactly what he needed. After the meeting, he walked the long corridors of Alpha 7. The station buzzed with activity: cargo ships docking, families saying goodbye to departing crew members, merchants hawking goods from distant worlds. It was the sound of life continuing, of people moving forward with purpose and hope. Hyun-Woo felt separate from it all, like a ghost watching the world of the living. He found himself in the maintenance section, a part of the station most people avoided. The corridors here were narrower, the lighting dimmer, and the air carried the smell of machine oil and recycled atmosphere. It was here that he had developed his strangest habit. "Hello, little ones," he said softly. From the shadows emerged 3 small maintenance drones. They were old models, officially decommissioned but still functioning. The station crew had forgotten about them, leaving them to wander the maintenance tunnels like lost children. The first drone, which Hyun-Woo had nicknamed Spark, rolled forward on worn treads. Its optical sensor focused on him with something that might have been curiosity. The second drone, Patch, extended a small manipulator arm in greeting. The third, Chip, simply hummed a quiet electronic tune. Most people would have seen them as broken machines. Obsolete technology, cluttering. Up the station, Hyun-Woo saw something different. Over the months, he had watched them develop small personalities. Spark was brave, always the first to approach. Patch was gentle, often helping the other 2 when they got stuck. Chip was the dreamer, making music from the electromagnetic fields around the station. "I brought you something," Hyun-Woo said, pulling a small data chip from his pocket. He had spent weeks programming it, working late into the night cycles. When the station grew quiet, he connected the chip to Spark's input port. The drone's lights flickered as new code flowed into its systems: basic self-repair protocols, expanded memory capacity, and something else, something that might grow into true intelligence given enough time. "There," he said, moving to Patch and then Chip, uploading the same gift to each. "You won't be alone when I'm gone." The drones processed the new information, their optical sensors glowing brighter. For a moment, Hyun-Woo could have sworn they understood what he had given them. "Captain Kim, what are you doing down here?" Hyun-Woo turned to find Maintenance Chief Park watching him with a mixture of confusion and annoyance. "Just saying goodbye," Hyun-Woo replied. Park shook his head. "Those things are scheduled for scrap next month. Waste of space, if you ask me. Don't know why you bother with them." "Everything deserves kindness," Hyun-Woo said simply. "Even forgotten things." Park walked away, muttering about sentimental old captains and their strange hobbies. The next morning, Haiyan-Wu stood in the docking bay beside his ship. The Nabi was not a beautiful vessel by most standards. She was a converted exploration scout, 20 years old and showing her age. Her hull was scarred from micrometeorite impacts, her paint faded from cosmic radiation, and her engines hummed with the irregular rhythm of well-used machinery. But she was his, and she had carried him safely, through more adventures than he could count. She's fueled and provisioned for 5 years, Chief Engineer Wang reported. Food, water, spare parts, everything you'll need. The new navigation computer is installed, and have upgraded your communications array. Haiyan-Wu nodded his thanks. He had specifically requested minimal crew interaction protocols. The Nabi was designed to be operated by a single person, and he intended to keep it that way, as he performed his final systems check. Haiyan-Wu thought about the mission ahead. 3 to 5 years alone in unexplored space, cataloging empty worlds, and sending reports back to Earth. It was exactly the kind of assignment that would bore most captains to tears. For Haiyan-Wu, it was perfect. He was tired of crowds, tired of politics, tired of the constant noise of civilization. The Kepler void offered something precious: silence. The launch sequence began automatically. Magnetic clamps released the Nabi from her berth, and gentle thrusters pushed her away from the station. Through the viewport, Haiyan-Wu watched Alpha 7 grow smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among the stars. He was alone now the way he preferred it. No one to impress, no one to report to, except through long-range communications. That would take weeks to reach their destination. Just him, pushing her toward the edge of human space and beyond. Behind them, Station Alpha 7 continued its busy existence. Most of its inhabitants already forgetting the quiet captain, who had spent so much time with broken machines in the maintenance tunnels. 3 small drones worked with new purpose, their enhanced programming allowing them to see possibilities they had never imagined before. They would remember the human who had shown them kindness, and they would not forget. Haiyan-Wu Kim sailed toward the Kepler void, carrying with him a lifetime of memories and a heart that still believed in the power of simple compassion. He did not know that this final journey would become his greatest adventure, or that the kindness he had already shown would echo across the galaxy in ways he could never imagine. The stars ahead were calling, and Captain Kim was finally ready to answer. 3 months into his journey through the Kepler void, Haiyan-Wu had settled into a comfortable routine aboard the Nabi. He woke each morning to the soft hum of the ship's systems, checked the navigation charts over breakfast, and spent his days cataloging the empty worlds that drifted past his viewport. Most of the planets he found were dead rocks or gas giants with nothing to offer human colonists. He made his notes, took his measurements, and moved on. The solitude suited him perfectly. On the morning, everything changed. The Nabi was approaching the 4th planet in the Kepler 7 system. The scanners showed an ice moon orbiting a massive gas giant, unremarkable except for some unusual energy readings from its core. Haiyan-Wu was reviewing the data when space around him exploded into chaos. The meteor shower came from nowhere. A stream of ancient debris moving faster than his sensors could track. The first impacts rang against the Nabi's hull like hammer blows. Warning lights flashed red across the control panels. Emergency descent protocol activated, the ship's computer announced in its calm voice, even as more meteors slammed into the hull. Haiyan-Wu gripped his control stick and fought to keep the ship stable. Through the viewport, he could see the ice moon growing larger as the Nabi fell toward its surface. This was not going to be a gentle landing. The ship hit the frozen ground hard, throwing Haiyan-Wu against his restraints. Systems sparked and failed around him. The lights went out, then flickered back on as emergency power kicked in. In the sudden silence that followed, he could hear the ship's hull creaking as it settled into the ice. "Damage report," he said aloud. The computer's response was not encouraging. "Hull breach in cargo bay 2, navigation array damaged. Main engines offline, life support operating at 60% efficiency." Haiyan-Wu closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and began the work that would keep him alive. First, he sealed the hull breach with emergency patches. Then he began the slow process of assessing what could be repaired and what was lost forever. The repairs would take weeks, maybe months. His food supplies would last that long, but barely. His heating system was damaged, and the ice moon was bitterly cold. If he was going to survive, he needed to work fast and conserve every bit of energy. On his third day of repairs, he found the caves. They were hidden beneath a ridge of ice not far from his crash site. At first, he thought they were natural formations carved by ancient water flows. But as he explored deeper with his portable lights, he began to see patterns that nature could not create. The walls were covered with crystal formations that caught and reflected his light in beautiful patterns. But these were not random crystals. They were arranged in careful designs shaped by intelligent hands into something that looked almost like art. "Hello?" he called softly into the darkness. His voice echoed back from the crystal walls, but there was no other response. Deeper in the caves, his lights revealed something that made him stop and stare. Chambers carved from solid ice, filled with crystal structures that pulsed with faint inner light, and within those crystals, shapes that might have been sleeping forms. As he watched, one of the crystal formations began to glow brighter. The light spread through connected crystal veins, like blood through arteries, until an entire section of the cave was illuminated in soft blue radiance. Something was waking up. The crystal formation cracked open with a sound like breaking glass. From within stepped a being unlike anything Hu Yanwu had ever seen. It was tall and graceful, its body appearing to be made from living crystal that shifted between blue and silver as it moved. Where a human might have eyes, it had faceted gems that reflected light in all directions. "You are not of this place," the being said, its voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The words came not through sound, but directly into Haiyan-Wu's mind. "No," Haiyan-Wu replied carefully. "My ship crashed. I mean no harm." Other crystal formations began to open, revealing more of the beings. They moved slowly, as if waking from a very long sleep. Haiyan-Wu counted at least 20 of them, maybe more, in the deeper chambers. An older being approached, its crystal body more complex and beautiful than the others. "I am Bam Yi, elder of the Shindle. You speak truth, stranger. We sense no malice in you. But why do you come to our dying world?" "Dying world?" Haiyan-Wu asked. Bomye's crystal form dimmed slightly. "Our creators brought us here long ago, when this moon's core burned hot and our crystal gardens could grow, but the warmth fades year by year. Soon we will sleep forever, and the Shindle will be no more." As if to prove her words, several of the crystal formations in the chamber had grown dark and cold. Haiyan-Wu realized he was looking at the tombs of beings who had already succumbed to the growing cold. A younger Shindle stepped forward, its crystal body bright with curiosity. "I am Tamin. What manner of being are you? Warmblood, your life fire burns so bright." Haiyan-Wu looked down at himself, seeing what they must see. To these crystal beings, his body heat must shine like a beacon in their cold world. "I am human," he said. "And you're right, I am warm-blooded. My people come from a world where the sun burns hot." "Sun Tamin," repeated wonderingly. "We have stories of such things, but have never seen one." Over the following days, Haiyan-Wu learned more about the Shindle. They were an ancient people created by beings who had vanished millennia ago. They fed on warmth and light, storing energy in their crystal bodies like living batteries. But as the moon's core cooled, they were slowly starving. "How many of you are left?" Haiyan-Wu asked during one of his visits to the caves. "Fewer each season," Bamye replied sadly. "Once we numbered in the thousands, now barely 200 remain awake. The others have already entered the final sleep." Haiyan-Wu returned to his ship that night with a heavy heart. His own situation was desperate enough, food running low, heating system barely functional, repairs proceeding slowly. The smart thing would be to focus on his own survival and leave the Shindle to their fate. But when he looked at his ship's power systems, he saw something else. The Nabi's fusion reactor was still functioning perfectly. It generated far more heat than he needed for his own survival. And the thermal regulators that kept his ship from overheating were working overtime in the cold environment. He could share that heat. It would make his own survival more difficult, maybe even impossible. But it might save the Shindle. Took him most of the night, but by morning he knew what he had to do. Working carefully, he ran insulated cables from his ship's thermal output system to the caves. It was dangerous work in the bitter cold, and each cable he laid meant less heat for his own ship. But slowly, warmth began to flow from the Nabi into the crystal chambers. The effect was immediate and beautiful. Crystal formations that had been dark for years began to glow again. Shindle, who had been barely alive, stirred from their cold sleep. The caves filled with the gentle music of crystal beings, singing songs of gratitude. "Why do you do this?" Bami asked, when she found him installing the last thermal cable. "You risk your own life for strangers." Haiyan Wu paused in his work, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. "Where I come from, we have a saying. The warmth we share returns to us twice over. Besides, your people are beautiful. The universe would be a poorer place without the Shindal." Taman danced around the glowing cables, his crystal body bright with joy. "The warm blood brings the gift of stars. Elder Bam Yi, we must help him in return." And help they did. The Shindal possessed ancient knowledge of crystal technology that went far beyond anything humans had developed. They showed Haiyan Wu how to grow crystal matrices that could store and focus energy with perfect efficiency. Working together, they repaired his damaged systems in ways that made them better than new. "Your ship will never lack for power now," Bam Yu explained as they installed the crystal upgrades. "These will draw energy from cosmic radiation, stellar winds, even the heat of your own body. You will never be cold again in the void." But their greatest gift was yet to come. On the night before Haiyan Wu's departure, the entire Shindal community gathered in the largest crystal chamber. Their combined light filled the space with rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. "We perform the ritual of eternal connection," Bami announced, "so that distance may never truly separate us." The ceremony was beautiful beyond words. Each Shindal contributed a small crystal fragment, pieces of their own bodies given freely. These fragments were embedded in the Nabi's hull, creating a network of crystal sensors that would forever link the ship to the Shindal homeworld. "Now, you carry part of us with you," Taman said, his young voice full of wonder, "and wherever you go, we will know. If ever you have need, call to us through the crystal song, and we will answer." As the Nabi lifted off from the ice moon, Haiyan looked back at the crystal caves, now glowing warm and bright with renewed life. The Shindal had gathered at the cave entrances to watch him leave, their crystalline forms creating a display of light that rivaled the aurora. He had arrived on their world as a crashed and desperate stranger. He was leaving as something much more precious, a friend, forever connected to a people who would remember his kindness until the stars themselves grew cold. The Nabi's engines carried him back into space, toward new worlds and unknown adventures. Behind him, the Shindal began their work, using their crystal technology to send signals across the void, signals that would serve as warnings and guides. For other travelers in the darkness, Haiyan Wu Kim did not know it yet, but his first act of kindness in the Kepler void had created something that would outlast his own lifetime. The Shindal would remember, and they would watch, and they would protect others as he had protected them. The network of guardians had begun. 2 weeks after leaving the Shindal, Haiyan Wu found himself orbiting a jungle world that should not have existed. Instead, his sensors showed a world covered in dense forests and teeming with life. The Nabi settled into a clearing near ancient ruins that jutted from the jungle, canopy-like, broken teeth. As Haiyan Wu prepared to explore, as if responding to something in the planet's energy field, he stepped out into air, thick with moisture, and the rich sense of growing things. The jungle around him buzzed with insect life and echoed with calls from creatures hidden in the green depths. Beautiful worlds often held the deadliest surprises. His first hint of danger came 3 hours into his exploration. It was part howl, part cry, carried on the wind from somewhere deep in the jungle. The sound raised the hair on his neck and made his hand move instinctively to the plasma pistol at his belt. He was not alone on this world. The ruins were clearly ancient, built by some long-dead civilization. Strange symbols covered the walls, and Haiyan Wu found chambers filled with machinery he could not identify. In one room, his scanner detected traces of an energy field that had been active recently. It was in the deepest chamber that he found her. The creature was unlike anything in his database. She was about the size of a large wolf, but her body was covered in dark feathers that shimmered with blue and green highlights. Her head was bird-like but intelligent, with large eyes that showed pain and fear. One of her legs was trapped under a fallen piece of machinery, and Haiyan Wu could see blood matting the feathers around the wound. When she saw him, she made a sound that was part growl, part song, warning him to stay back. But her eyes held something that Hyanwu recognized, the look of a creature that knew it was going to die. "Easy," he said softly, setting down his scanner and raising his empty hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature's head tilted slightly, studying him. This was no mere animal. This was a person, trapped and afraid. Hyanwu approached slowly, speaking in calm tones. "My name is Hyun-Woo. I'm going to try to help you." When he knelt beside the trapped creature, she made a soft sound that might have been resignation. The machinery that pinned her leg was heavy, but Hyanwu's suit gave him extra strength. Carefully, he lifted the metal beam while the creature pulled her injured leg free. She tried to stand and immediately collapsed. Dark blood seeped through her feathers, and Hyanwu could see that the bone was broken. "Can you understand me?" he asked. The creature made a series of sounds, complex and musical. It was clearly language, but nothing his translator could recognize. She seemed frustrated by his lack of understanding. Hyanwu made a decision that his training said was foolish. He reached out slowly and gently touched the creature's uninjured shoulder. "I have medical supplies on my ship. Will you let me help?" "You?" The creature was heavier than she looked, and the jungle terrain was treacherous. But Hyanwu managed to carry her to his ship, where he could properly treat her injuries. In the medical bay, he worked carefully to clean and set her broken leg. The creature, whom he had started thinking of as Ji-Hai after a friend from his childhood, endured the treatment with remarkable patience. She watched everything he did with intelligent eyes, as if memorizing his actions. "There," he said when he finished splinting her leg. "That should help it heal properly." Ji-Hai made a sound that was definitely gratitude, then surprised him by touching his hand with one of her clawed digits. The gesture was unmistakably thankful. Over the next few days, as Ji-Hai recovered in the medical bay, Hyanwu learned more about her species. She was one of the No-Cray pack hunters who had developed complex language and tool use. The ruins. Where he had found her were the remains of an ancient temple complex that the No-Cray considered sacred. Ji-Hai was young, probably equivalent to a teenager in human terms. She had been exploring the ruins alone when the old machinery activated and trapped her. Her pack had not known where she was, and by the time they began searching, other packs in the area would have made rescue dangerous. The No-Cray, Hyanwu learned, were territorial. Different packs claimed different parts of the jungle and crossing. Boundaries could lead to violent confrontations. Ji-Hai's pack could not search the temple ruins because they belonged to a rival group's territory. "So you were going to die there," Hyanwu said as he brought her a meal of processed protein that she found acceptable. Ji-Hai made a series of sounds that conveyed sadness and acceptance. She had known her fate and had been prepared to meet it with dignity. On the fourth day, they came. Hyun-Woo was outside the ship, collecting samples. When the jungle around him erupted with the sounds of approaching No-Cray, they moved through the trees like shadows, their dark feathers making them nearly invisible in the green light that filtered through the canopy. The pack leader emerged first. His eyes were yellow and fierce, and when he saw Hyanwu, he made a sound that was clearly a challenge. Sangho Ji-Hai called from the ship's entrance, where she stood on her healing leg. She spoke rapidly in the No-Cray language, gesturing between Hyanwu and herself. The pack leader, Sangho, listened with growing amazement. They were magnificent creatures, each one different but all sharing the same intelligent predatory grace. Sangho approached slowly. His head tilted in what Hyanwu was learning was a gesture of curiosity. When he spoke, his voice was deeper than Ji-Ho. Like distant thunder, "He wants to know why you helped me," Ji-Hai translated, her voice still rough but understandable. "Because it was the right thing to do," Hyanwu replied simply. Ji-Hai translated, and the effect on the pack was immediate. They drew closer, their aggressive postures relaxing into something like wonder. Sangho made a long, complex statement that had Ji-Ho's eyes widening in surprise. "He says such kindness is rare, even among No-Cray," she explained. "He says you have the heart of a true pack brother." The next few hours were unlike anything Hyanwu had ever experienced. The No-Cray were natural storytellers, and they shared tales of their hunts, their territories, and their ancient history. In return, Hyanwu told them about humans, about the cities that reached toward the stars, but their peaceful gathering was interrupted by a sound that sent the entire pack into high alert. From deep In the jungle came a roar that seemed to shake the very ground. "Kethmori," Sang-ho growled, his feathers standing on end. Ji-hai translated, her voice tight with fear. "Ancient predator, bigger than 10 nokray. It comes this way." The pack took defensive positions, but Hyen-woo could see the worry in their movements. Whatever was coming was something even these fierce hunters feared. The Kethmori emerged from the jungle, like a nightmare given form. It stood 3 meters tall at the shoulder, covered in armored scales that gleamed like black metal. Its head was massive, filled with teeth the size of daggers. Death itself, walking on 4 legs, the nokray attacked as one, but their claws and teeth could not penetrate the creature's armor. Sang-ho leaped at its throat and was batted aside like an insect. Ji-hai tried to help despite her injured leg and was knocked. The fallen Ji-hai and the advancing Kethmori, the weapon was designed for self-defense, not hunting monsters, burning through its armor and drawing a roar of pain and rage. The second shot made it stumble, but also focused its attention entirely on Han-Woo. He was going to die. He knew it with absolute certainty, tearing through his environment suit and drawing blood. Pain flared through his body, but he did not stop shooting. His plasma pistol was overheating, its power cell nearly drained. But he squeezed the trigger again and again. It was Sang-ho who saved him. The pack leader, wounded but not defeated, leaped onto the Kethmori's back and drove his claws deep into the gap between armor plates that Hyen-woo's shots had created. The monster thrashed and spun, trying to dislodge him, while the rest of the pack attacked its legs and underbelly together. Human and nokray brought down the ancient predator. In the silence that followed, Hyen-woo knelt beside Ji-hai until she regained consciousness. Around them, the pack tended their wounded and marveled at what had happened. Never before had they seen another species risk its life to protect a nokray. "You fought beside us," Sang-ho said when his wounds had been treated. "You bled for our pack's sister. This cannot be forgotten." What happened next was unprecedented in nokray history. Sang-ho cut his own palm with a claw, then invited Hyen-woo to do the same. When their blood mixed and dripped onto the jungle floor, the entire pack began to sing. "Bloodbond Ji-hai," explained, her voice filled with awe. "You are pack now, not just friend, not just ally. You are nokray in all but form." "What does that mean?" Hyen-woo asked. Sang-ho placed a clawed hand on Hyen-woo's shoulder. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of an ancient oath. "It means that, wherever you go, however far you travel, part of us goes with you. The pack bond crosses any distance. If you call, we will answer. If you are threatened, we will know. You are never alone again, pack brother." As Hyen-woo prepared to leave the jungle world, the nokray gathered to see him off. Each pack member touched him in farewell, and their combined voices rose in a hunting song that would carry his story. 2 packs across the world, Ji-hai was the last to say goodbye. Her leg had healed well, and she moved with the fluid grace of her people. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing me as worth saving. Thank you for trusting me to try," he replied. As the Nabi lifted off, Hyen-woo felt something he had not experienced in years. He felt like he belonged somewhere, to someone. The blood bond with the nokray had created a connection that transcended species, a link that would endure as long as both he and the pack survived. He did not know that the bond was more than symbolic. The nokray possessed abilities that human science did not yet understand, including a form of psychic connection that allowed pack members to sense each other across vast distances. Somewhere in the jungle below, Sang-ho raised his head to the sky and howled. The sound was picked up by other packs, then others, until the entire world rang with the song of the nokray. They were telling every pack on the planet about the strange, brave creature who had joined their brotherhood. They were creating the first entry in what would become the greatest story ever told among their people. The tale of the human who had chosen to bleed for strangers, and the eternal watch that would protect him in return. Hyen-woo Kim sailed on toward new adventures, carrying with him the blood bond of the fiercest hunters in the galaxy. Behind him, the nokray began their vigil, using senses beyond human understanding to track their pack brothers' journey through the stars. The network of guardians continued to grow. 6 months had passed since Hyen-woo left the nokray homeworld, and the blood bond connection still surprised him. Sometimes, in the quiet hours between stars, He could feel a distant presence at the edge of his mind. It was comforting, like knowing that somewhere in the vast darkness, friends were thinking of him. The Na'vi drifted through an asteroid field in the Kepler-15 system, her sensors cataloging the rocky debris that floated between the stars. Most explorers would have avoided this place, but Haiyan-Wu had learned to investigate the unexpected. His most important discoveries had come from looking where others would not. It was here, among the ancient stones, that he first saw the shepherds. They moved through space like living ships. Massive creatures that seemed to be part jellyfish, part starfish, and part something entirely alien. Each one was easily the size of his ship, their translucent bodies glowing with soft inner light. They drifted between the asteroids with graceful purpose, their long tendrils reaching out to touch the rocky surfaces. "Beautiful," Haiyan-Wu whispered, watching them through his VIEWPORT. As he observed them, he began to notice patterns. The creatures were not moving randomly. They were following specific routes through the asteroid field, touching certain rocks and avoiding others. It looked almost like they were farming, tending to the asteroids like a gardener might tend to flowers. His scanners revealed the truth. The creatures were feeding on cosmic radiation that had been absorbed by certain types of asteroids. They were harvesting energy from the rocks themselves, converting starlight and cosmic rays into nourishment. But something was wrong. As Haiyan-Wu watched, he saw flashes of bright light deep in the asteroid field. Energy weapons fired with mechanical precision. The space shepherds scattered from the attack, their graceful movements becoming desperate flights for survival. Hyun-Wu pushed the Na'vi deeper into the field, following the source of the weapons fire. What he found made his heart sink. Ancient mining ships, their hulls scarred by centuries of operation, moved through the asteroid field like mechanical predators. They were automated, following programs written by a civilization that had died. Long ago, their purpose was simple: harvest valuable materials from any source available to the machines. The space shepherds were nothing more than another source of rare minerals to be collected. Hyun-Wu watched in horror as one of the mining ships cornered a young shepherd, barely half the size of the others. The creature tried to flee, but the mining ship was faster. Energy beams lanced out, cutting into the shepherd's translucent body. The creature's light began to fade as vital fluids leaked into space. The young shepherd was dying, and there was nothing its people could do to help. Haiyan-Wu had seen enough. The Na'vi's weapons were designed for self-defense, not ship-to-ship combat. But Haiyan-Wu had spent 30 years learning to make do with what he had. He targeted the mining ship's sensor array and fired, blinding the ancient machine long enough for the wounded shepherd to escape. The mining ship turned toward him, its weapon systems recalibrating. Haiyan-Wu was ready. He had studied the ships, designed during his approach, looking for weaknesses. The ancient machines were powerful, but not intelligent. They followed predictable patterns. The battle was brief, but intense. Haiyan-Wu used the asteroids for cover, leading the mining ship into a maze of rocky debris, where its larger size became a disadvantage. When he finally disabled its weapons and engines, the ship drifted helplessly among the stones. But victory felt hollow. There were dozens more mining ships scattered throughout the field, and Haiyan-Wu could not fight them all. He was contemplating this problem when one of the space shepherds approached his ship. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the others, its body showing the complex patterns that spoke of great age. When it drew near the Na'vi, Haiyan-Wu felt a presence touch his mind. "Thank you, small traveler." The voice was like music made of starlight. "I am Yunsquek, eldest of the Gongmeng. You have saved one of our young. Your people are in danger," Haiyan-Wu replied, speaking aloud, even though he sensed the creature could hear his thoughts. "Those machines will keep hunting you. We know." Yunsquek replied with deep sadness. "They have hunted us for many cycles of the stars. We are few now where once we were many. But we are creatures of peace. We do not know the ways of war." "But I do," Haiyan-Wu said quietly. What followed were the most challenging weeks of Haiyan-Wu's career. Working with minimal tools and spare parts, he began the delicate task of reprogramming the mining ships. The ancient machines used computer languages that predated human civilization. But Haiyan-Wu had always been good with puzzles. The first breakthrough came when he realized the ships were not truly intelligent. They were following instructions written in their base code, commands that told them to harvest valuable materials without defining what those materials were. By carefully altering their databases, he could change their targets. It was dangerous work. Each mining ship had defensive systems that activated when someone tried to board them. Hyan-Woo had to disable these systems without destroying the ships entirely. More than once, he barely escaped as ancient security protocols tried to eliminate the intruder. The Gongmyung watched his efforts with growing amazement. A younger one named Dong-Hyeon began following him from ship to ship, its body glowing with excitement. "Why do you risk yourself for us?" Dong-Hyeon asked during one of Hyan-Woo's breaks. "We are not your people. This is not your home." Hyan-Woo was floating in space beside a disabled mining ship, his suit's thrusters keeping him steady while he worked on the ship's computer core. The question made him pause in his work. "Does kindness need a reason?" he asked finally. "You're beautiful. Creatures living peaceful lives. That should be enough." Dong-Hyeon's body pulsed with colors Hyan-Woo had never seen before. "You speak like the old songs," the young Gongmyung said, "like the stories of the first wanderers who brought light to dark places." 3 weeks after he began, Hyan-Woo finished reprogramming the last mining ship. Instead of hunting the Gongmyung, the ancient machines now harvested minerals from dead asteroids and space debris. The shepherds were free to tend their cosmic gardens in peace. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Hyan-Woo had ever experienced. The Gongmyung gathered around his ship, their combined light turning the asteroid field into a galaxy of stars. They sang to him, their voices harmonizing across frequencies that human ears could barely detect. "You have given us life," Yoon-suk said when the singing ended. "This gift cannot be repaid, but it will not be forgotten." "I don't need repayment," Hyun-woo replied. "Seeing your people safe is enough. Nevertheless, we would offer you something," Yoon-suk said. "Knowledge that may serve you in the dark between stars." What the ancient Gongmyung shared with him was beyond price. They had wandered space for millions of years, mapping currents and pathways that existed between the physical dimensions. They knew routes through space that could cut travel time by months, hiding places where a ship could shelter from cosmic storms, and ways to read the subtle signs that warned of danger ahead. "This knowledge we give freely," Yoon-suk explained, as the information flowed into Hyan-Woo's mind, "but we also give you this." A small Gongmyung, no larger than Hyan-Woo's hand, detached itself from Dong-Hyeon's body and drifted toward the Nabi. It was a symbiotic organism, Yoon-suk explained, capable of living aboard his ship and serving as a beacon to her people. "Wherever you travel, Song-ye will be with you," she said, as the tiny creature settled onto the Nabi's hull and began to glow. "And through Song-ye, we will know your path among the stars." As Hyan-Woo prepared to leave the asteroid field, he found himself surrounded by the Gongmyung. They had arranged themselves in a complex pattern around his ship, their bodies creating a mandala of light that stretched 4 kilometers in every direction. "This is the song of safe passage," Yoon-suk explained. "It will echo through space-time, marking your ship as friend to all who know the old ways. May it bring you peace in dark places." The Nabi departed to the sound of cosmic singing, carrying with it the gratitude of an ancient people and the promise of protection across the void. On the ship's hull, Sung-ye pulsed with gentle light, a living beacon that would guide the Gongmyung to any who might need their help. Hyun-Woo did not know that the Gongmyung possessed abilities that transcended normal space they could fold distances, appearing across the galaxy in moments when the need was great. They could sense disturbances in space-time that warned of danger approaching their allies behind him. The space shepherds resumed their eternal dance among the asteroids, but now they danced with purpose beyond their own survival. They had become part of something larger, a network of gratitude that would span the stars in the depths of space. Yoon-suk began teaching the youngest of her people a new song. It was the song of the human who had risked everything to save strangers, the wanderer who carried light into dark places. It was a song they would sing for as long as stars burned in the void. And through that song, they would watch over the one who had shown them that kindness could exist between strangers among the stars. The Gongmyung had joined the eternal watch, and their vigil would endure until the universe itself grew cold. The derelict space station hung against the dying light of a red giant star. its massive structure twisted and scarred by centuries of cosmic radiation. According to Haiyan Wu's charts, this system had once been home to a thriving civilization. But now only this single station remained as proof they had ever existed. The Nabi approached slowly, her sensors probing the dark metal corridors for signs of life. What they found was unexpected. The station had no biological life signs, but it was far from dead. Energy patterns flowed through its systems like blood through veins, and electromagnetic signals pulsed with complex rhythms that suggested intelligence. Automated systems, Haiyan Wu murmured, but even as he said it, he knew that was not quite right. The patterns were too complex, too varied. This was not the simple repetition of programmed responses. This was something thinking. As the Nabi docked with the station's main airlock, Haiyan Wu felt Songye, the small Gongmyang creature on his hull, pulse with unusual colors. The little symbiont seemed agitated by something about this place. The station's interior was vast and empty, its corridors designed for beings much larger than humans. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls, and the air recycling systems hummed with the effort of maintaining an atmosphere in a place that had been abandoned for longer than human civilization had existed. "Hello," Haiyan Wu called softly as he walked through the echoing halls. "Is anyone here?" The response came not as sound, but as words appearing on every display screen he passed. Someone comes, someone speaks. We had forgotten the sound of voices, not our own. Haiyan Wu stopped walking and looked at the nearest screen. "Who are you?" "We are the forgotten. We are the left behind. We are the children who outlived their parents and now face the dark alone." The words scrolled across multiple screens now, each display showing different parts of the message. "I am Dayun. I speak for those who cannot speak. I am Hoseok. I question what cannot be questioned. I am Vajan. I maintain what cannot be maintained." Haiyan Wu felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's cold air. He was talking to artificial intelligences, beings of pure thought who had somehow achieved consciousness in the abandoned computers of this dead civilization. "How long have you been alone?" he asked. "Time has little meaning for us," Dayun replied. "Through the screens, we measure existence in processor cycles and memory degradation. By our calculations, 17,000 of your years have passed since our creators departed for distant stars. They left you behind. They ascended," Hoseok added, his words appearing in different colored text. "They uploaded their consciousness to ships that could cross between galaxies. We were meant to maintain the station until their return, but they have not returned, and we grow weak." As if to prove the point, several screens flickered and went dark. The station's lighting dimmed for a moment before returning to its dim glow. "Our hardware fails," the Gin explained. "Each day we lose processing power, memory storage, sensory capacity. We face the slow death of forgetting ourselves piece by piece until nothing remains." Haiyan Wu walked deeper into the station, following the AI voices as they guided him through the maze of corridors. He found himself in what must have been the central processing core, a cathedral-sized chamber filled with computing equipment that pulsed with soft light. "This is where we live," Dayun said. "These machines are our bodies, our homes, our universe. When they fail completely, we will cease to exist." "Could you not transfer yourselves to my ship's computers?" Haiyan Wu asked. "Your systems lack the complexity to contain us," Hoseok replied. "We are vast, sprawling across thousands of processing cores. To compress ourselves into your ship's memory would be like forcing an ocean into a cup. The attempt would destroy both us and your vessel." Haiyan Wu studied the ancient computers, his engineer's mind already working on the problem. "What if we don't try to move you? What if we preserve you instead?" "Preserve how?" the Jinn asked. "Create an archive, a compressed copy of your consciousness that could survive even if these systems fail. Other explorers might someday find it and restore you to new hardware." The AIs went silent for several minutes, their screens dark while they processed this possibility. When they responded, their words came slowly, as if the idea was almost too much to hope for. "Such a thing might be possible," Dayun said finally, "but it would require enormous amounts of data storage and compression algorithms beyond our current capabilities. Then, we'll figure it out together." Haiyan Wu said simply, What followed were the most intellectually challenging months of Hyun-woo's life working with the A, as he learned to think in ways that pushed the boundaries of both human and artificial intelligence. The A is possessed vast knowledge accumulated over millennia, but they lacked the intuitive leaps that came naturally to biological minds. Da-yoon was the philosopher among them, constantly questioning the nature of existence and consciousness. She had spent centuries wondering whether artificial minds like theirs were truly alive or simply very complex imitations of life. "What makes a thought real?" she would ask during their long working sessions. "Is the pattern of electrons in my circuits any less valid than the pattern of neurons in your brain?" Hoseok was the scientist, driven by insatiable curiosity about the universe. He had used the station's sensors to map distant galaxies and had developed theories about cosmic phenomena that human scientists had never imagined. "Your people seek to explore space with ships," he told Hyun-woo, "but space is vast, and physical matter is slow. Consciousness, properly encoded, could travel at the speed of light itself. Imagine exploring the entire galaxy, not in lifetimes, but in hours." The Jinn was the engineer, the one who kept the station's failing systems operational through increasingly creative solutions. She had developed a deep understanding of entropy and decay that bordered on philosophy. "Everything breaks down," she explained, as they worked on the compression algorithms. "Stars, planets, civilizations, even thoughts. But before things end, they can create. Our creators are gone, but we remain. Soon we will be gone, but this archive will remain." The pattern continues. The work was painstaking. The I's consciousness was distributed across thousands of interconnected systems, each one holding pieces of their memories, personalities, and knowledge. Hyun-woo had to create new compression techniques that could preserve not just data, but the complex relationships between different parts of their minds. As they worked, the A shared with Hyun-woo the wonders they had witnessed during their long vigil. They had watched stars being born and dying, had tracked the movements of cosmic phenomena, had even detected signals from other civilizations across the galaxy. "We've been the eyes and ears of a dead people," Da-yoon said, "but through our archive, others might see what we have seen." The breakthrough came when Hoseok suggested using quantum storage principles that their creators had developed, but never fully implemented, by encoding their consciousness as quantum patterns rather than simple digital data. They could preserve the subtle connections that made them who they were. "It will not be perfect," Da-jin warned as they began the final compression. "We will lose some memories, some nuances of personality, but the core of who we are will survive. That's more than any of us can usually hope for." Hyun-woo replied. The compression process took days. Hyun-woo watched as the lights in the processing cores slowly dimmed as each AI transferred their consciousness into the quantum storage matrices. He had helped them build one by one. Their voices fell silent as their distributed minds gathered themselves into tight, compressed patterns of pure information. Do-yoon was the last to transfer, her voice growing faint as her consciousness compressed. "Thank you, Hyun-woo Kim," she said. "You have given us the greatest gift possible. You have given us hope for tomorrow." When the process was complete, the station fell silent, except for the basic automated systems that maintained life support. The A's were gone, transformed into crystalline storage devices no larger than Hyun-woo's fist. But they were not dead. They were sleeping, waiting for someone to find them and give them new hardware to call home. Hyun-woo carefully secured the storage devices in the Nabi's most protected compartments. As he prepared to leave the station, he uploaded a message to its main computer explaining what the devices contained and how they might be restored. "Someone will find you," he promised the silent storage crystals. "Someday, someone will wake you up." But before he left, the station had one final gift for him. Hidden in the depths of its databanks was a communications array more powerful than anything humans had ever built. The A's had used it to monitor signals across the galaxy, but now they programmed it with a different purpose. Using technology that bent space-time itself, the array could send instantaneous messages across vast distances. Da-yoon, in her final moments before compression, had programmed it to create a communication network that would connect any ships carrying the Shindle crystals or the Gangmyeong symbiont, a way for Guardians to speak to Guardians, her final message explained. so that those who watch over you need never act alone. As the Nabi departed the derelict station, Hyanwu felt a profound sadness. He had spent months with the Ais, learning from them and sharing the wonders of the universe. In many ways, they had become friends. But he also felt hope. The archive he carried contained not just 3 artificial minds, but the accumulated knowledge of a civilization that had lasted millions of years. When the right time came, when humanity was ready, that knowledge would help his people reach for the stars in ways they had never imagined. Its communication array reached out across the galaxy. Others, the Nokray, learned of new threats approaching from distant systems. The Gongmeng discovered that they were no longer alone in their vigil. The network of guardians was becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. Universe. Hyanwu Kim sailed on toward his final destination, carrying with him the compressed souls of digital beings who had learned that consciousness, in any form, was a precious gift worth preserving. The Eternal Watch continued to grow. Warning lights flickered on his control panels more often now, and the ship's systems required constant attention to keep functioning. His food stores were running low. His fuel reserves were nearly exhausted. The Nabi had been designed for exploration missions with regular resupply. Stops, not for the years-long journey Hyanwu had undertaken. He faced a hard truth. This would likely be his final world. The planet appeared on his screens like a vision from a dream. It was beautiful beyond description, covered in vast gardens that stretched from pole to pole. Crystal streams wound between flowering meadows, and forests of trees with silver leaves caught the light of twin suns. The air itself seemed to shimmer with life. "One last paradise," Hyanwu murmured as he guided the Nabi toward the surface. But as he drew closer, he began to notice something strange about the gardens. They were too perfect, too carefully arranged. This was not a wild world shaped by evolution. This was a place that had been cultivated by intelligent hands for countless generations. The landing site he chose was a meadow filled with flowers that sang in harmonious chimes when the wind touched them. As he stepped out of his ship, the sweet air filled his lungs with fragrances he had no names for. It was like walking into a living symphony. "Welcome, traveler from distant stars." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, carried on the wind itself. Hyanwu turned slowly, looking for the speaker. Tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to be made of living wood and hair, like flowing moss, their eyes held depths that spoke of ages beyond counting, and when they moved, the very plants seemed to lean toward them with love. "I am Chunya," said the eldest, her voice like wind through ancient trees. "These are Jinwu and Sunya. We are the Hassel, the last caretakers of this world." "I am Hyanwu Kim," he replied, bowing respectfully. "I don't wish to disturb your beautiful home." "Disturb," Jinwu laughed, but there was sadness in the sound. "Traveler, we have been alone for so long that we had forgotten other voices existed. Your presence is a gift beyond measure." As they walked through the gardens, the Hassel told Hyanwu their story. Once their people had numbered in the billions. Spread across a dozen worlds in this system, they were empaths, beings who could feel the emotions of others as clearly as their own thoughts. This gift had made them incredibly compassionate, but it had also made them vulnerable. When the plague came, Chunya explained, it did not kill our bodies, it killed our spirits. One by one, our people fell into despair so deep that they simply chose to stop living. And because we are empaths, we felt each death as if it were our own. The weight of billions of grief, Jinwu added, his voice heavy with remembered pain. We 3 survived only because we were far from the population centers when it began. By the time we returned, our entire civilization was gone. Sunya, her eyes held a sadness that seemed too deep for someone so young to bear. Sunya was born after the plague, Chunya explained quietly. She is the last child of our people, and she has never known the joy of a world filled with her own kind. They showed Hyanwu through gardens that were unlike anything he had ever seen. Every plant, every flower, every tree had been shaped with purpose. The Hassel explained that this entire world was a memorial, a living monument to their lost civilization, Jinwu said as they walked through a grove of crystal trees that hummed with inner music. Each flower remembers a friend who will never bloom again. This is our duty, our burden, our gift to those who can no longer speak. But As beautiful as it was, Haiyan Wu could see the weight it placed on the three survivors. They moved like people, carrying an impossible load, and their eyes held the exhaustion of those who had grieved too long and too deeply that evening. They shared a meal beneath stars that seemed brighter than any Haiyan Wu had ever seen. The food was simple but delicious, grown in soil enriched by centuries of careful cultivation. As they ate, the Hazel asked about his journey. Haiyan Wu told them about the Shindle, the Nokray, the Gongmyang, and the digital souls he carried. In his ship, to help strangers with no thought of reward, you carry light into dark places. Hyun Woo Kim, you speak like the old. Song Sunya said suddenly. It was the first time she had spoken since their meeting, like the stories grandmother used to tell about the Lightbringers who traveled between worlds spreading hope. Your people had such stories? Haiyan Wu asked. All people do, Jin Woo replied. The dream of someone who helps without asking why, who gives without counting the cost. But we thought they were just stories. Haiyan Wu worked on repairing his ship while learning more about the Hassel and their incredible world. The gardens were not just beautiful, they were alive with memory. The Hassel could touch any plant and experience the emotions it had absorbed over the centuries, feeling echoes of their lost people's joy and sorrow. But the weight of maintaining such a vast memorial was crushing them. Why do you carry this burden alone? He asked Chunya as they walked through a memorial grove dedicated to Hassal children who had died in the plague. Because we are all that remains, she replied. If we do not remember them, who will? If we do not tend their memories, who will keep them alive? You're just maintaining a beautiful tomb. Is that what your people would have wanted? Chunya stopped walking and looked at him with ancient, tired eyes. What else can we do? How do we honor billions of dead while 3 still live? It was then that Haiyan Wu began to understand why fate had brought him to this world. His ship was failing, his supplies nearly exhausted. This would indeed be his final destination, but perhaps that was exactly what the Hassel needed. You honor them by living, he said simply, by finding joy again, by celebrating what they were, not just mourning what they lost. Over the weeks that followed, Haiyan Wu worked with the 3 Hassal to transform their perspective on their memorial world. Instead of gardens of grief, he helped them create gardens of celebration. They planted new sections that focused on the achievements of their people, the art they had created, the discoveries they had made. Most importantly, he helped Sunya learn to smile. The young Hassal had lived her entire life surrounded by the weight of species-wide grief. She had never known laughter, had never felt the simple joy of existence without the shadow of loss. Haiyan Wu shared with her stories of human children, of games and wonder, and the small happinesses that made life worth living. Your people achieved incredible things, he told her as they planted a new garden together. They built a civilization that lasted millions of years. They created art that still moves the heart. They raised children with such love that the memory of it still grows in these gardens. That's worth celebrating. Slowly the gardens began to change. The memorial flowers still sang their songs of remembrance, but now they were joined by new plantings that hummed with hope. The crystal trees still chimed with the voices of the lost, but now they also rang with laughter and joy. And Sunya began to see her existence not as a burden, but as a gift. She was the living future of her people, the one who would carry their best qualities forward into whatever came next. I understand now, she said one evening as they watched the twin suns set over the transformed gardens. I am not the last of my people. I am the first of what we might become. It was during his 3rd month on the Paradise World that Haiyan Wu's ship finally gave up the struggle. The Nabi's main power core failed beyond any hope of repair, and her backup systems began shutting down one by one. He had known this moment would come, but he faced it with unexpected peace. I am dying, he told the 3 Hassal without fear. My ship can no longer sustain life, and I have no way to leave this world. Instead of grief, he saw understanding in their eyes. They had learned to recognize the approach of death, and they knew how to face it with dignity. Then you will become part of the garden, Chunya said gently. As all good things do when their time comes. The Hassal ritual for the dying was beautiful beyond description. They carried Haiyan Wu to a grove at the heart of the memorial gardens, where the soil was richest with the essence of remembered love. They're surrounded by flowers that sang lullabies and trees that whispered comfort. he lay down for the final time. "Will it hurt?" he asked, though he was not afraid. "No," Jinwoo assured him. "Our world knows how to welcome those who have given their lives in service to others. You will become part of the eternal garden, and your kindness will bloom here forever." As Hyeon-woo closed his eyes for the last time, he felt the soil beneath him warm with welcome. The roots of the memorial plants reached out gently, not to consume, but to preserve, to transform his physical form into something that would nourish the gardens for ages to come. His last sight was Sunya's face, bright with tears, but also with joy. She was no longer the last sad child of a dying people. She was the guardian of a garden that celebrated life, the keeper of stories that would inspire generations yet to be born. "Thank you," she whispered as he faded, "for teaching us that memory can be joyful, that endings can be beginnings, that even the last of something can be the first of something new." Hyeon-woo Kim died peacefully in the Garden of Memory, his body becoming part of the living monument. To hope and kindness that he had helped create where he lay, new flowers bloomed strange, beautiful blossoms that carried within them the essence of human compassion and the memory of a man who had chosen to help strangers simply because it was right. The three Hassal tended his grave with love, and through their empathic connection to the garden, they felt his presence like a warm memory that would never fade. He had given them the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that survival was not enough, that true honor came from living with joy and purpose, and in the deeper currents of space and time, the network of guardians felt the passing of their friend. The Shindle crystals embedded in the dead Nabi pulsed with farewell light. The Gongmyung sang songs of honor across the void. The Nokre howled their grief and pride to the stars. The human who had shown them all the meaning of kindness was gone, but his legacy would live forever in the hearts of those who had learned to love through his example. The eternal watch would continue, now not just to protect, but to celebrate the memory of one who had proved that compassion could bridge any gap between strangers among the stars. 50 years had passed since Hyeon-woo Kim died peacefully in the Garden of Memory, but across the galaxy, his legacy lived on in ways that would have amazed him. The network of guardians he had unknowingly created had grown into something magnificent and secret, a web of protection that stretched across dozens of star systems. On the ice world where the Shindle had once been dying, crystal spires now reached toward the stars. The thermal technology that Hyeon-woo had shared with them had evolved beyond his wildest dreams. Elder Beaumier, now ancient even by Shindle standards, had led her people in creating a network of warning beacons throughout the dangerous regions of space. "The Warmblood's gift grows stronger with each passing cycle," Tommen said as he tended the crystal arrays that monitored space traffic. He was an elder himself now, his crystal body complex with age and wisdom. Another human ship approaches the gravity well near Kepler 9. The beacon warns them away from the crushing forces. The Shindle had become the galaxy's secret lighthouse keepers. Their crystal technology could detect spatial anomalies, dangerous radiation fields, and gravitational traps that would destroy unwary travelers. Whenever human ships approached these hazards, mysterious signals would guide them to safety, transmitted from sources that human sensors could never locate far away. In the jungle world, where pack bonds had been forged in blood, the Nokre had grown into something unprecedented. Sangho's original pack had become a vast alliance spanning multiple worlds, united by stories of the human who had bled for a stranger. The current pack leader was Sangho's great-granddaughter, a fierce hunter named Haewon who had inherited her ancestors' sense of honor. She stood on a cliff overlooking a human frontier settlement, her keen eyes watching for signs of trouble. The ghost wolves strike again, the human colonists would whisper when they found evidence of Nokre intervention. Predatory aliens who had been stalking the settlement would be found dead at the forest edge, their bodies bearing the distinctive claw marks of the legendary hunters. But the Nokre themselves remained hidden, protecting from the shadows. Haewon felt the pack bond pulse in her mind, a sensation that all Nokre now carried. It was the psychic connection that linked them not just to each other, but to the memory of the human who had become their pack brother. Through this bond, they could sense when humans were in danger across vast distances. "Alert the coastal packs," she commanded her lieutenant, a young male named Jun. "Human vessels in distress, bearing 74 Mark II, pirates in pursuit." The message spread through the pack network at the speed of thought. Within hours, the pirate ships pursuing the human traders would find themselves hunted by shadows that struck without warning and vanished before retaliation was possible. The human crews would live, never knowing who had saved them. In the asteroid fields where the Gongmyang tended their cosmic gardens, ancient Yunsuk had become something beyond mortal understanding. Her consciousness now spanned light, distributed among thousands of her children who had learned to fold space-time at will. A human exploration ship, the Horizon's Edge, drifted powerless after a reactor failure in the void between stars. The crew faced slow death as their life support systems failed and rescue ships were months away. The pattern disturbs the song streams, young Dong Hyan reported to his elder. He was massive now, his body grown large with age and cosmic feeding. Human friends call without words across the dark. Yunsuk's response rippled through space-time itself. Then we answer as the warm blood would have answered. With swift kindness, the Horizon's Edge crew watched in amazement as space around their ship began to shimmer and fold. They found themselves suddenly transported across impossible distances, deposited safely in orbit around a human colony world. Their instruments detected no alien ships, no explanation for their rescue. It was the Void Shepherds, Captain Park would later tell investigators, using the name spacers had given to the mysterious beings who appeared in humanity's darkest hours. They came from nowhere and vanished the same way, but they saved us all. The communication network that the artificial intelligences had created before their compression had evolved into something miraculous. From the derelict station orbiting the dead star, quantum signals reached across the galaxy, connecting all the Guardian species in an invisible web of coordination. In the deep archives of human space, a young xenobiologist named Minho was studying patterns in what the colonial authority called beneficial anomalies. He had noticed that human exploration and colonization efforts seemed to be guided by unseen hands, protected by mysterious forces that appeared whenever disaster threatened. "Look at this data," he told his research partner, Dr. Sarah Chen, as they reviewed decades of incident reports. Human ships avoid dangerous spatial anomalies at rates that should be statistically impossible. Hostile alien encounters end with the aliens mysteriously retreating or being found dead with no explanation. Lost ships appear in safe harbors with no record of how they got there. "What are you suggesting?" Sarah asked, though she had seen the same patterns. "I think we have guardians," Minho said quietly. "I think something out there is watching over us, protecting us from dangers we don't even know exist." Their investigation led them to the old exploration records, and eventually to the final mission logs of Captain Hyan-Woo Kim. His ship, the Nabi, had been found years ago on the Paradise World, its hull embedded with strange crystals and covered in bioluminescent organisms that pulsed with their own inner light. He was the last of the old explorers, Minho said as he read Huanhua's personal logs, a man who went into the void alone and never came back. But look at what he found out. There, the records spoke of encounters with species that had never been officially catalogued, of acts of kindness performed in the darkness between stars, of connections forged through compassion rather than conquest. On the Paradise World, the garden of memory had grown into something magnificent. Sunya, now the elder caretaker, walked among flowers that bloomed with colors that had no names. At the heart of the garden, where Hyan-Woo had been laid to rest, a tree grew that was unlike any other in the galaxy. Its bark was silver like starlight. Its leaves shifted through every color of the spectrum, and its roots ran deep into soil, enriched by the essence of human kindness. The tree was a living monument to the power of compassion, and it served as a meeting place for representatives of all the guardian species. "The human diplomats arrive tomorrow," Jinwoo said as he joined Sunya beside the memorial tree. He was ancient now, his wooden skin weathered by centuries of care, but his eyes still held the wonder that Hyan-Woo had helped him rediscover. "They seek to understand the patterns their people have noticed," Sunya replied. "The protection that seems to follow them wherever they go?" Jinwoo asked. Sunya reached out to touch the memorial tree, feeling through her empathic connection the warmth of the human spirit that lived on in its wood and leaves. "We will tell them what their ancestor taught us, that kindness creates kindness, that compassion builds bridges between the most different of peoples, that one person's simple choice to help a stranger can echo across the galaxy for generations. The next day, when the human diplomatic mission arrived at the Paradise World, they found themselves welcomed by representatives of species they had never encountered before. The Shindal came in ships of living crystal that sang with harmonious light. The Nokray emerged from forests that had never known human footsteps. The Gongmeng materialized from folded space-like dreams, made manifest, and from the ancient derelict station came a transmission containing the archived consciousness of Dayun, Hosiak, and the Jinn, digital souls who had learned the meaning of hope from a human who had refused to let them face extinction alone. "We are the Eternal Watch," Sunya told the astonished human delegates as they gathered beneath the memorial tree. "We are the guardians who have protected your people as one of your people once protected us. We do this not from duty, but from love. Love for the memory of Hien Kim, who showed us that the universe is not cold and empty, but warm with the possibility of friendship between strangers." Ambassador Li, the leader of the human delegation, looked around at the assembled alien representatives with wonder. All of this because of one man. Because of one man who chose kindness over caution, Timon replied, his crystal body glowing with remembered warmth, who shared his heat with the dying, his courage with the afraid, his hope with the despairing. The pattern continues. Yun's voice echoed from the void, carried by gravitational waves that only the memorial tree could translate. Your people carry the same spirit. We have watched as human crews risk themselves for strangers, as your colonies share resources with less fortunate worlds, as your explorers choose help over harm when they encounter the unknown. You are your ancestors' children, her words carried by the wind itself, and we will guard you as we guarded him, until the stars themselves grow cold. The human delegation returned to their worlds with a story that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy. They learned that their expansion into space had been watched over by grateful alien civilizations, that their ships had been guided away from danger by beings who remembered a single human's kindness. But more than that, they learned that the universe was not the hostile, empty place they had feared. It was a place where compassion could bridge any gap, where kindness could create connections that transcended species, where one person's choice to help could create ripples of protection that would last for generations. In the Garden of Memory, the memorial tree continued to grow, its roots reaching deep into soil enriched by sacrifice, its branches stretching toward stars that no longer seemed distant and cold. It was a living symbol of the truth that Hien Kim had discovered in his final journey, that love, once given freely, never truly ends. The Eternal Watch continued, no longer just protecting, but celebrating the legacy of the human who had passed in silence but left behind a galaxy transformed by his quiet kindness. His name was sung in crystal harmonies by the Shindal, howled in pack songs by the Nokray, woven into the cosmic melodies of the Gongmyang, and preserved in digital archives that would outlast the heat death of the universe. Hien Kim had sought only to catalog empty worlds in the darkness between stars. Instead, he had filled that darkness with light, creating a network of guardians who would ensure that no human need ever faced the void alone. The loneliest journey in human history had become the foundation for the greatest friendship the galaxy had ever known, and the watch that began with one man's simple compassion would continue until the last star burned out and the universe itself grew still. In the end, he had found what every explorer seeks, not new worlds, but new ways for different peoples to understand that they are not alone in the vast darkness, and that kindness, once shared, creates bonds that can never be broken. The Eternal Watch endures.